We think it could be $250 to $500 billion, so roughly 10% of the total federal budget.
Is it fair to say that for the past 4 years, we were getting looted from fraudsters?
That's 100% accurate. If you're receiving public assistance, how do you have a Mercedes? How do you have a BMW? So we will track that down.
Today, we're here at the Treasury of the United States. It's essentially the Bank of America, as over $6 trillion essentially leaves this building each and every single year. Right now, with the fraud that's taking place here in the United States, they came up with a new fraud task force, and the Treasury is doing stuff different than they haven't done before to make sure that fraud is not taking place. Today we're going to be interviewing with the Secretary himself, Scott Bessent, and this will be super important for you guys to understand what's taking place here inside our country to prevent fraud from taking place. And right now on the website, antifraudclub.com, we just released brand new hoodies right here asking, where did our tax dollars go? They actually kind of go inside this building. But now you can become an anti-fraud taxpayer club member. Just go to antifraudclub.com and you can go ahead, purchase a hoodie, and you can also sign up to get exclusive emails each and every single week as we report on the fraud that's taking place here inside of our country. Now let's get into the interview. You're over essentially the Bank of America here. You control the money and over the Treasury. Now with what you guys are doing with fraud, how are you guys going to be going about to tackle the fraud? And you guys just released a new whistleblower program as well.
Great. Nick, good to have you here. And 20% of the GDP of the U.S. comes through Washington, D.C. every year. And we believe that between $250, $500 billion is lost to waste, fraud, and abuse. And we think that the best way to stop that from happening is to keep it from getting out. Because once you try to call it back, that's very difficult. So what we are doing, Treasury is leading an all-hands-on-deck effort. The Vice President has been tasked with the Fraud Commission. At Treasury, our lead effort is to integrate all the agencies and figure out where the money is going. We're setting up a do-not-pay system, which over time will allow us to follow the money. We will be able to follow whether it's HHS or HUD or anywhere else. Where is money going to? How do we find it? Are there unusual payments? Here at Treasury, we collect something that the banks give us called suspicious activity reports, SARS. So can we overlay the suspicious activity reports on top of these unusual payments, which we've been able to do in Minneapolis?
And prior to this, what was the government doing to make sure that money wasn't going to fraudsters?
Nick, unfortunately, it was the opposite. Under the Biden administration, to get money out during COVID, they took down all the guardrails and they never put them back. Bobby Kennedy said at the inaugural day of the anti-fraud task force that the vice president convened, he said at HHS, they had 60 people charged with preventing fraud. The Biden administration, they have fired all of them. So again, the real thing is to keep the money from going out the door to the fraudsters. Very difficult to recover it. But one thing we are trying to do with recoveries is anyone wants to go to treasury.gov. We now have a site for whistleblowers. You can make up to 10%, 30% the reward for the money the Treasury recovers. So nothing comes out of the pockets of the American taxpayer. It's if you help us bring money back to taxpayers, we will pay you a bounty in essence. It's kind of like when we started having all the problems with suitcases at airports, on trains, on buses. If you see something, say something. So what we're asking American citizens to do now is if you see something unusual, say something, and we can reward you for it.
Is it fair to say that for the past 4 years, we were getting looted from fraudsters as there wasn't really any guardrails to stop the fraud?
That's 100% accurate. The American people are the most generous in the world, but American society, all societies and communities are based on trust. And if you lose trust at the very basic levels, if the citizens don't trust each other, then you can't have a community. So we're trying to bring that back.
So if I were to be a fraudster 3 years ago and I want to start a home health care business, how easy would it have been for me to get money from the federal government?
Well,
or a daycare, a Leering Center, for instance.
Yeah. In most cases, the federal government does block grants to states, so they dump it down into states, And like what you did in Minnesota was an incredible job of uncovering what had happened. But it's very easy because, again, the way the money went out the door, no accountability, and prosecutions are very difficult too because, and the fraudsters know. They know that if they keep their thievery below $1.5 million, $3 million, that the U.S. attorneys don't have the resources to go after them. Like, they want to have a big splashy 10 million headline. So like this whole ecosystem developed, and as you discovered in Minneapolis, St. Paul, they learned how to do it. It was very unfortunate that charity and state support just turned into businesses and LLCs and boxes and empty storefronts.
Because in Minnesota, you had these daycares, $1 million, upwards of $3.6 million, but it was kind of in that area of $1 to $3 million, where prior they weren't even chasing after fraud. That was over $1.5 million. Now will that fraud get chased down and those people be prosecuted?
Oh, we are in the middle of that. We are actually going to the auto dealers, and we're asking to see the financial records for their finance subsidiaries. If you're receiving public assistance, how do you have a Mercedes? How do you have a BMW? So we will track that down. We're also doing a much better job now because the real problem was all areas of government weren't talking, whether it was the agencies here in D.C. or the money was passed on to the states. And what we're really going to push for is transparency, because it was some level of transparency that allowed you to go to all the daycares, is some level of transparency that allowed you to go to the home health care out in LA. But I've spoken to reporters from all over the country, but let's take New York City, for example, especially egregious there. Newspapers there, mainstream journalists, citizen journalists want to do the right thing, but the state or the city doesn't want to give it out. So we are asking for transparency, and I think every citizen should demand from their elected officials, whether it's a red state, a blue state, whether they are far left, far right, right down the middle, that their elected officials give them transparency. And we want to make sure that this money is going to where it's supposed to go. Because, as we saw at the roundtable out in Minneapolis, because a lot of times when these things get shut down, the money doesn't go to autistic children like it's supposed to, or it doesn't go to our seniors who are supposed to be helped out.
And essentially, if the government and if the local governments and state governments don't make the information public, nobody can actually go and do what I did in Minnesota, or go out and do the fraud finding. So what does it say about these local governments, state governments, when they don't want to make that information public?
Well, it says that there's likely a daisy chain there, that where that there's political patronage, there are political cover-ups, that there's some reason, because everyone, that you swear an oath to your office, whether it's to your city, to your state, to your country, to do the best you can. And if you're enabling this, you're breaking your vow to the people. So a good steward of capital would want to have the money go as far as it can. You would want to help the people in your district, in the country. So I think there's a big chance for a sea change here. And look, I hope the Democrats on the other side of the aisle want to join us in this, because imagine that if we could save $500 billion, we could pay down debt, we could cut taxes, we could make sure the money gets to people who are supposed to have it.
These people were able to just steal and literally loot the American taxpayer for years on end. And there wasn't really a program to make sure that nobody was actually giving money to fraudsters. So now the Do Not Pay program that you guys have set up, how will that help eliminate the fraud? And like, for instance, was HHS talking with the Treasury when they would see a flaw? Or
Never before. And the other vulnerability that we saw was TSA, which everyone sees at the airport, which is part of Homeland Security, that if you showed up, you're not supposed to, well, you can, but if you had more than $10,000, you're supposed to declare it. People were actually declaring it at Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, but the declaration forms just went into a filing cabinet. So now we are mapping those against people who are receiving benefits and, watch this space. But I think we're going to have some very, they were trying to take the money out of the country, disappears, overseas, perhaps goes into terrorist networks. But watch this space. We're going to have some big announcements on what we found going through and just matching up data. The data was always there. It was just getting the departments and the systems to talk to each other.
So now essentially all the departments will be able to work together, because prior they were not, correct?
Not at all. Not at all.
Shocking.
And we're going to restaff the departments back to their pre-COVID levels in terms of the people who are supposed to work there to stop this waste, fraud, and abuse.
And so with all this fraud, how much money do you think each year the government is giving to fraudsters, or was giving?
Well, we think it could be $250 to $500 billion, so roughly 10% of the total federal budget. And like I said, 20% of the whole GDP of the U.S. Goes through Washington. So if you take 20%, then 10% of 20%, 2% of our GDP was being lost to these fraudsters. And again, it's a complete loss of trust between our citizens. And at the end of the day, as we approach the 250th, I think we should kind of reaffirm everyone wants to be a good citizen. They want to help their communities. They want to help their states. They want to be proud of the U.S., but we can't be proud of this.
Mm-hmm. I think something super important you talked about, now you guys are going after the places where these people are buying cars, and you're going after the banks you announced the other day. What will that look like? What does that do when you guys actually go after the banks for this fraud?
Well, again, so they're the banks, they're the auto finance components, there are the other thing, the money store businesses in the places like Minneapolis that was wiring money out of the country. So again, they have to be on notice. They are supposed to notify us of suspicious activities, and it's going to be incumbent. We have something here called FinCEN, Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, and once we receive those notifications, it's going to be on us to follow up.
So the fraudsters shouldn't be driving around in luxury anymore.
Well, they shouldn't be driving around in luxury, and the people who are supposed to get the benefits shouldn't be going without.
And if somebody does have a tip, if they do want to be a whistleblower and get a percentage of whatever that is, what's the simplest way for someone to do that?
Go to treasury.gov. Top of our website is an icon in the corner. Click on that, and it will take you right to the site where you can report anything. If you see something, say something.
It's as simple as that. Seeing something, say something. You don't need to make a viral video to help your community.
Nope.
You can actually just submit a tip to you guys.
Exactly.
How many tips have you guys gotten so far?
We've gotten more than 700.
So 700 fraudsters are on the watch now.
They should know we're coming for them. And again, citizen journalists, the good citizens who want to do the right thing and get a reward.
When can we expect to see some of these people get arrested and prosecuted?
Again, as I said, watch this space. I think we're going to have some big announcements very soon.
Last question. How come in Minnesota, somebody who commits fraud only is getting, for instance, they're involved in Feeding Our Future, they got 1 year of prison time. Do you guys have any say-so over that, or is that the state government?
That's U.S. Attorney. But what we are going to do is we can use IRS criminal investigations, so they can put together cases. U.S. Attorney's Office can do it, but a lot of these sentencing guidelines have been very lax. So it's like I said, the best thing we can do is to keep the money from going out, and the best thing we can do is put fear into these fraudsters that you will be caught. You will be caught, and that it's going to stop.
Thank you very much. I do feel grateful that due to some of the work that one person in David, for instance, in Minnesota is able to do, along my side, we actually have been able to create change here inside the government, which I think is a broader message to people here in the United States that you can make a difference for the country.
And look, I think every citizen, like I said, the far left, far right, right down the middle, should demand transparency.
Amen. Thank you very much.
Good. Thanks, Zach.